Hello guys, so we are going to continue the discussion with respect to statistics, and in this video we are going to discuss about population and sample data. So what exactly is population data and sample data? Along with this we will be seeing some multiple examples along with some use cases. Okay, so we'll try to learn in such a way, and I will follow this specific pattern wherein first of all we'll go ahead and see the definition, then I will show you multiple examples in order to understand this specific definition. And after that, any new characteristics needs to be shown for this kind of terms that I'm actually using, that will also be shown. Okay, so here you can see that population. First of all, we will go ahead with the definition. Again, the definition over here is a population is the entire set. Okay, so it shows over here the population is the entire set of individuals or object of interest in a particular study, right? So any study that you are specifically doing, right? If you consider the entire set of individuals or objects that is involved in that particular study, then you can consider that as a population. It includes all the members of a defined group that we are studying or collecting information on. Similarly, sample data, it is nothing but it is subset of population that is used to represent the entire group. Sampling involves selecting a group of individuals or observation from the population to draw conclusion about the whole population. Okay. Now, let me just talk about some amazing characteristics about this population. So here we are going to consider some characteristics. The first characteristics over here is nothing but here population data basically indicates a complete set, right? It contains all the observation of interest in which any specific study you really want to do. So here I will say contains all the observation of interest. Second is nothing but it is about a parameter, and this we are talking with respect to characteristics parameter. Okay, so parameter is nothing but here we are just mentioning at a numerical value. Okay, summarizing the entire population. Okay, now the reason we have used these characteristics like complete set and parameter. So complete set is nothing but, first of all, this entire population data has two important characteristics. One is complete set, that is containing all the observation of interest, and another one is something called as parameter, and this parameter term we will also be using as we go ahead. It is nothing but a numerical value that summarizes the entire population. Some of the example here we can specifically use is like population mean. So if I go ahead and write something like this, population mean, the average of all the population. The second example I can go ahead and write is something like population variance. So variance can also be one example. Okay, so this kind of examples we can specifically use for this kind of parameter. Now this numerical value, whatever numerical value we are getting from population mean or population variance, this summarizes the entire population. So let me do one thing. Let me just go ahead and write this in a better way so that you will be able to refer this note in an easy way, right? So here some of the example is nothing like population mean, and this population mean is also denoted by mu, and then second one is something called as population variance. Some of the example that we are considering, and population variance is given by sigma square. We will discuss about this, so this is what is all about population data. Again, let me repeat it. It is the entire set of individual or object of a particular interest in a particular study. It includes all the member of a defined group that we are studying or collecting information on. Along with this, there are two important characteristics. It represents a complete set. It contains all the observation of the interest. Then the second one is nothing but parameter. It has a parameter, and that parameter is nothing but it is a numerical value that summarizes the entire population. Now let's go ahead and discuss about some of the examples with respect to population data. Okay, let's consider one example. I will say, hey, population in a school study. So if I am having a use case like school study, so population will be nothing but all students enrolled in a school, right? Enrolled in a school. So this will be my entire population data. The second thing will be that if I consider a use case, let's say I want to determine the average height of students. So in this case, what I need to calculate? I need to basically calculate your population mean, right? Population mean. So these are some of the examples whenever we are specifically using population data, right? Population in a school study, I have to probably go ahead and consider all the students enrolled in the school. So let me just go ahead and write it like this. Second example, if I go ahead and consider, the second example that I can consider is nothing but population in, let's say, market research. Let's say I have a use case related to market research, okay, of a particular city. So of a particular city, the entire population is all the consumers in a city. All the consumers in a city, right? Then if I probably talk with respect to use case, let's say to understand the purchasing behavior, to understand the purchasing behavior, okay, of all consumers. So if I want to understand the purchasing of all the consumers, I have to analyze this specific data of every consumer in the city, okay. So this can be also one more example. The second thing is the second point that I'm actually mentioning is a use case. One more example that we can consider about is where we use population data. Okay, and one more thing, guys. Sometimes in some of the use cases, we do not have the exact population data, right? Because just understand, if I say all the consumers in a city, right? It is very difficult to track each and every one, right? Specifically in a population. We cannot find out like how many consumers are there in the city, right? Yes, theoretically, you may feel that, hey, at least some tentative value will know, but practically, if you go and probably keep on counting, it will not be possible. Okay. So that is one restriction with respect to population data. Third example that can be considered is population in a medical study. So when we are specifically doing this, in this case, what will be my population? All the patient, right? All the patients with a specific disease. So this can be my entire population data. Then use case, let's say one of the use case I can say to study the effectiveness of a drug. To study the effectiveness of a drug, right? So for this, what we really need to do is that first of all, we need to collect the entire population data from all the parties, all the patients who are suffering from that disease, right? So in this way, I hope you're able to get an idea. So population data is nothing but we are just talking about all the data who are interested in this particular research, whatever work we are specifically going to do. Okay. We'll discuss more about population and all as we go ahead. But now let's go ahead and understand about sample. Now with respect to sample, let's talk about the characteristics with respect to the sample data. So here, usually sample data is probably taken in order to make a conclusion, right? So one of the important characteristics is that this is not a complete set, but this is a subset. When we say subset, it represents a portion of the population. Right? Second, if I consider statistic, right? See here, we consider a parameter, right? Similarly, if I really want to represent a numerical value summarizing the sample data, then we call that as statistic. Okay, summarizing the sample data. If I have a numerical value that summarizes the sample data, then we basically call it as statistic. Okay, some of the examples over here is nothing like, it is your sample mean, and then you have this sample variance. Okay, so this is basically called as statistic. Okay, then third important characteristics will be that third important characteristic is nothing with respect to random sampling. We'll discuss about what are the types of random sampling in the next video. Okay, so here the idea is very simple. Samples should be randomly selected to avoid bias. Okay, and ensure that proportionate data is specifically coming. We can also talk about representativeness. Okay, so usually the random sampling is one of the very key characteristics of the sample data, but again, based on different scenarios, all the time we cannot just work with randomly selected data itself, right? But in most of the scenario, one of the specific characteristics is that, hey, try to probably select the samples randomly so that you'll be able to avoid bias. Okay, now these are the important characteristics with respect to the sample data. Now we will go ahead and see some of the examples. Again, over here with respect to the examples, here I'm going to write. Okay, so first one is sample study or sample in a school study. Now, what kind of use cases I can specifically solve over here? So let's talk about it. Okay, so first one basically will be like, let's say that I select a group of 50 students, okay, from school. So this is my sample data. And if I talk with respect to use case, what kind of use case I can probably solve with this sample group of 50 students? Okay, I can estimate the average height of students in a school, right? And for this, I will obviously be requiring this statistic value, which is nothing but sample mean or sample variance. So this is one kind of example here, and the kind of use cases that we can probably solve with this, and how to solve it and all, I will just show you in the upcoming examples and all upcoming videos, right? Second example can be the same thing, sample in market research. Now let's say in this market research, instead, I told you, right, in most of the scenario, it is not possible that you probably find out all the consumers in a city. No. So what we do is that we take, let's say, a sample size of 500 consumers, okay, in from the city. Okay, then the next thing is that if we understand this 500 consumers purchasing behavior, okay, and you can generalize, so this people behavior you can generalize for the entire population, right? So this is one specific example. Similarly, let's say for the third one, here we have the same thing, the population in a medical study, right? But in case of sample in a medical study, you will be able to see that instead of selecting all the patient, and obviously let's say that we also don't know like how much patient is there with a specific disease. What we do, let's say we go ahead and pick up 200 patients. And then we try to test the effectiveness of the drug. It's like if the drug works for this 200 patients, we can come to a conclusion that it may work with the other patients. Again, here we need to perform a lot of hypothesis testing. We need to probably have a confidence interval value, p-value, and many more things are there, which we will specifically discuss when we discuss about inferential statistics. But now I hope you got an idea with respect to what is exactly population data and sample data. What are the key characteristics of population data? Please remember this whenever we have some numerical value that summarizes the entire population. We basically say it as parameter. Here we say it as statistics. And then I have also shared multiple examples over here. So I hope you like this particular video. This was it from my side with respect to population and sample data. I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you.